everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we have our world famous speaker, Professor Nick, Professor David Smith, Professor Donalds, and Mr. Raymond. We are actually collaborating with Energy Ministry Bangladesh, and they have a plan to utilizing all of our content for their development purpose. And especially, we will discuss on ESG. We are helping Bangladesh to develop better policy to Central Bank of Bangladesh and energy ministries. And hopefully today's discussion will be very, very helpful for developing nations, country like Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, Maldives. These are the countries. So first, I would like to give chance Professor Nick Palveda, and I want to give special thanks to joining to this session.
Well, thanks, Sharif. I'm Nick Palavita. I'm the CEO of the IBM TV Pod TV network. We actually broadcast about 80 shows in 122 countries right now, including we have our own channel called Pod TV on the Roku network. All you have to do is type in Pod TV. It's right along with Netflix, Amazon, and all the other streaming network services. That just actually went up about 3 months ago. So we're a relatively new channel. We do have a lot of good guests and people that head up our channel. One is David M. Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States, heads up one of our program. And then we also are bringing in Lamar Odom, who's doing another program. So we have a lot of variety of programs that are running on the network right now.
Thank you, sir. Professor David Smith, what you want to add for today's discussion, especially when we discuss about ESG, how we can create more awareness for ESG in developing nations, because most of our audience from developing nations.
Sure. A lot of what we see with ESG is, it's an acronym for environmental, social, and governance, corporate governance in particular. And one of the challenges with ESG is that it has so many different definitions for so many different people. And that as you begin to look at it, it's changed how we look at companies. Instead of just considering the potential profitability or risk presented by them, we now want to see, does it agree with the way we look at our social responsibility approaches, be it diversity, be it sustainable investing, be it impact investing, or mission-related investing. The other upside of this is ESG investors tend to be the more activist investors, and they are actively working to influence company policies and practices. And ESG has really come in place more because of the millennial generation and how they want to put into it. And this extends not just into the policies of the corporation, but even things like executive compensation and others that is growing. And it's recently growing quite a bit. Morgan Stanley in a recent survey found that about 90% of the millennial investors were more interested in pursuing investments, not because of monetary feedback, but they more closely reflected the value that they hold. And going back to the last place I saw data in 2018, about $12 trillion worth of investment assets were selected using social responsibility as the investing strategy. So it's a big change going forward. And you see now even ESG focused exchange traded funds. BlackRock and Vanguard are the two largest ones, which are putting these funds in place to be able to represent this new class of governance, this new class of investors and approach. So it's a trend that's growing. And as I said, it's heavily driven by the millennial investors and their belief that the social responsibility is one of the key elements for everything they're doing. And that's why this has blossomed into such a major movement is going forward. So Sharif, I think that gets my started.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Professor Donald, can you hear me? Professor Donald, can you
Yes,
hear
I
me?
can. Yes, I
Yes, thank
can.
you. Yeah.
Had to unmute there. Well, I think a tiny bit of what David said is a good start. I want to give a tiny bit of background. Um, an interesting thing about kind of historically is when business schools were starting out, they weren't considered legitimate at all. Business was considered something that was intuitive. Um, Business wasn't considered something that was that you could teach. And so, in order for business schools to legitimize themselves, they adopted basically neoclassical economics, and they needed to have something that was scientific, and I put that in quotes. And the scientific basis of it was rational choice economics. And what that means is that they tried to come up with a way of measuring their success. And the way that they measured it was with money, and which is a reasonable thing to do. And the that everything that businesses, all of a business's success had to do with how much money they make. And so that has to do with CEO compensation. The better that the business does, the more the CEO is compensated. And that leads to some perverse results, because oftentimes a business does well simply because the economy's doing well. So you'll wind up with CEOs who are considered to be rock star CEOs just simply because of the fact that they were running the company at the time the economy was doing well, and then they get paid huge sums to take over companies, and they don't do well at all because they take over a company when the economy's not doing well, and the company had nothing to do with the CEO at all. And because money is the only criteria that the companies use, they don't care about externalities. And so externalities are things that the company does where they're affecting the world around them. And externalities can be things like pollution. And pollution is basically harming the people around them, but to clean that up costs money. And if the company's spending money to clean it up, that's money that they don't have. So if they spend that money to clean it up, they have less money and they're less profitable. So they're more profitable if they don't clean things up. If they don't pay their employees as much, they're more profitable because they have the money in the company rather than giving the money away to their employees. All of the kinds of things that companies can do that are harm the environment and harm the society, the world around them. So the environmental and social governance is an attempt to try and mitigate those kinds of things. And as you can see from what I'm saying, that creates kind of a balance issue, because if you do those things, it can potentially impact the amount of money that the company makes. Because if the company is cleaning up after themselves, and if the company is paying the employees more, and if the company is doing those kinds of things, potentially it's spending money to do that, and it's potentially making less money. So there's a dynamic between the two. It's a balancing act. So what needs to happen is you have to have some sort of a way of measuring this environmental social government impact. And so various accounting firms have developed methods of measuring this. And what they are these large questionnaires. In other words, then if people value that, they say, well, we don't just value the money that comes from the company, we also value the ESG from the company. So we don't really care if the company isn't making as much money as long as they are doing these other things. That's valuable too. And countries in the world have decided this as countries. Countries like Finland, the Nordic countries have decided that that's important to them. And so what they're winding up with is happy people and healthy people and things like that, which they consider to be valuable. And in the United States, that's not considered valuable, but in many countries in the world, that's considered valuable. So, as David said, among millennials, and that's considered valuable. So people are willing to switch and get less money in order to get the value of having a cleaner environment and healthier and happier people. So the question is how do you know if a company's really doing that? So they've developed metrics, and unfortunately, the metrics are different for different accounting firms. There's no standard metric. And the metrics are also not consistent with the companies. There are like 1,200 questions that the companies are supposed to answer in some cases, and the companies are not consistent about actually answering all of the questions, and the questions are still partial because they can answer the questions for their own company, but then they don't answer them for their supply chains, so you don't really know if the impact that the company's having, because the supply chain might not be paying the employees well, and the supply chain might be doing pollution and causing environmental damage, and so on and so on. So basically, I think I kind of outlined both the what the ESG is about and some of the issues that are important about it. And I think that the important thing to really have ESG and make ESG work is to have some consistent measurement for it. And that's something that's being developed. And that if people want to have successful ESG, they need to really look at finding keeping their eye on what's happening in the most consistent measurements that they can use to be able to measure ESG, and have people be sure that they're getting what they expect to get for the investments that they're making.
Thank you. Madam Kimberly, I have a specific question, because when we do some case study, especially country like Bangladesh, women leadership is a very important factor, especially our country's prime minister, women. And there is a major challenges for women when they become prime ministers, and they're doing all of the things, lot of challenges locally and internationally they have to face. Especially, I want to share one of the specific things. Let's say when Bangladesh tried to develop this one of the largest project for the breeze, definitely it's a part of is like part of sustainable development goals. And that time World Bank first they said that there are a lot of corruptions and they will not provide funding and financing for these mega projects. After that, Bangladesh developed this Podda Breeze uh, uh, with their own money, and it's a lot of history. But it's a small country, but for them it's a big thing. But my thing is that when this kind of crisis come, how the global community can help country like Bangladesh, and how we can support more women leaders in politics, like Bangladesh prime ministers in policy. Definitely one of the member from Bangladesh Energy Ministry, they will join soon. But I want a detailed analysis from you because you are a great leaders, great motivators, and yes, we saw that when women are in power, they can change many things, especially Bangladesh economy change because of this Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
Well, Sharif, I'm so honored that you would consider that, especially in the women's leadership roles. I think we just need to unite. You know, women, we're caring, giving, loving creatures. I don't think men are not. I think that we're raised differently. We're put in different culture sections. And so we have different views. That's why I've been asked to be on different shows, is because women have different perspectives than what men have. I mean, one of the things I noticed during the COVID crisis, New Zealand, who is basically ran by a woman, they never had to shut down. They never stopped their schools during COVID. They could have been completely wiped out, but she ran this show completely different, and with the completely different resources and tools. But she thought differently, right? She thought in a totally different mannerisms, and she controlled the situation. So I think women do things different than men. Now we're talking about a crisis in our ecosystem, right? And I think, like any other crisis, we need to just kind of take a deep breath before we jump in, and we need to focus on what's really happening. And I want to address this ESG initiative. So about the bridge, exactly. But I want to address this about getting any corporation to invest in what is going on. And one of the things, I mean, Nick, you can back me up on this, is the number one way to get any corporate leader incentivized is tax benefits, right? And to me, ESGs, the more tax benefits that you provide to people and to the government, the more incentivized we're going to be to invest back in our ecosystem. Unfortunately, majority of the reasons why a lot of people and corporations especially do these kind of things isn't always about the well-being of our future. It's usually about the well-being of the corporation and what they can get back on return. Too many of the corporations create these problems that we're dealing with. And I think women leaders will come forward more as we start addressing these problems more logically. Right now, you're letting a lot of men address these problems. And the first thing men want to do, I mean, look at Putin, right? He wants to pull out a gun and start shooting people so that he can throw his ego around and show that he's powerful. So I think what we need to do is just say, let's unite, invite more women to these programs, give them reasons to come. Okay. You pay, unfortunately, men are paid more, they're compensated better. I bet if I go through the stimulus packages that were given out to the companies, 98% of them were given to male open companies. If I'm just betting this one. But I'm willing to bet 98% of them were male operated companies. The majority of the women owned companies did not get the compensation or the same compensation that the men did in the United States. So how do you expect us to have time and energy and resources to participate in programs like this, because we're running around trying to save our companies because we don't get the same equal opportunities as most of the men companies? So I think that's what needs to happen. But I think we need to unite and work as one, and we don't. And so I think that's the true beginning, is start inviting more women. Be very focused about why you're inviting them. Don't waste their time any more than you want them to waste yours. And bring them in to give their point of views and appreciate it as a different point of view. Okay, we're not going to think like you. We're not going to solve problems like you. We're not going to approach the issues like the men. We're 100% unfortunately different. But I don't think we're wrong any more than I think the men are wrong. I think we're just different and we approach it. But if you take a look at New Zealand and how well they survived one of the largest crises in the whole world, I think we would respect the women's point of view and opinions a little bit more on approaching some of these situations. So I think we just need to equalize the platform a little bit better and make more invitations, make it more open and welcoming for women to come. Because we even noticed, like, over the years, a huge drop in women in the education system, right? In higher education, especially in engineering, there was a high turnover rate of women. And fortunately for NC State, we've kind of turned that around. But it takes focus, it takes energy, and we have to make people feel equal. I mean, when I put in 4 years into a college education program and I invest the money into that, when I graduate, I want to be treated as equal. I want to be paid as equal. And we're not. Even to this day, we have proven with lawsuits and everything, we're not. And that's why you're not getting the equal input like you should probably from some of the women. And maybe you're getting a ratio equal. Maybe, maybe one out of every 20 women creates the equal balance based on what our earnings are and what our respected levels are. But I truly believe that that's how it's going to happen. So
Thank you, Professor Kimberly. Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir, you are from Energy Ministry, Bangladesh. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she is actually Minister of Energy for
Power and
Bangladesh.
energy.
Once
Power
upon
and
a time, yes, yes, energy. When I was children, from the global arena, some point we listened that Bangladesh is a bottomless basket.
once,
Now,
once.
economically, yes, now economically, Bangladesh is a tiger of South Asia. Recently, they finished one of the largest project, Podda Bridge. We know that World Bank stopped this bridge finance for corruption and many things. Then, with their own money, Bangladesh, it's a very, compared to the world, maybe it's a very small thing, but for inspiration, for motivation, it's a huge achievement for Bangladesh people. So I want to learn more about uh, the Bangladesh economical present situation and how the global community can support more a country like Bangladesh. Because and another thing, World Talent Economy Forum do not have any involvement with politics. We just want to bring some very important and positive news to the global arena. Maybe we can understand each other and we can grow together. So, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir, what you want to
Okay,
share
thank
with
you.
our audience?
I'm extremely sorry for being late because one of my ex-senior colleagues just expired just this evening. I was there, so that I couldn't join with you on time. Hmm. That's why I'm sorry for being late. Thank you so much for your good question. Um, Global finance, but donor finance in World Bank, from World Bank or other donor agencies or development partners in Padma Bridge, it was a political part of political economy. One thing, it is part of political economy. It is part of political economy. There are so many debates, but once some of renowned economists also said that it will be a test case, Bangladesh development case, bottomless basket. All these statements also are political part, political economy. But in the right direction and guidance of our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, yes, we can demonstrate our capability, we can demonstrate our self-confidence that we can do with our own money, and we have already successfully completed this mega project, large complex project. It will praised by all other corner of the development partners or other countries also. It is a role model in Bangladesh as and economic development part, we are going to establish 100 special economic zone across the country. Almost 50% zone, special economic zone are almost 20 20 economic zones almost ready to operate. So in that case, FDI or foreign investor are very, very, very willing to invest in Bangladesh. And there are so many high tech projects in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, we will find when you visit Bangladesh, all the guests are welcome to visit Bangladesh. You will find another Singapore, another Europe in this special economic zone area. We are going to build that type of economic zone. All these special economic zone are being constructed or established under the guidance of, or they are comply the ESG. ESG, not only CSR. CSR is that ESG. They are complying ESG part also. Basically, our private sector or MNC sector, we are ESG is a relatively a new idea for our developing countries or least developed countries, but we are in our private sector, they are trying to fix up the criteria of ESG, standards of ESG and framework of ESG. They are trying to establish the criteria and standard and a checklist also. In our Bangladesh, in our country, international independent testing lab, namely SGS, Switzerland-based SGS, inspection and testing lab. They are already introducing the ESG criteria also. So all these things taking under consideration, we could say we can say that our economic activities and economic development are exponentially growing, and our per capita income or GDP also exponentially growing. In spite of COVID or pandemic situation, in spite of pandemic situation, we have achieved the we have achieved the we have achieved the criteria of middle income countries or middle income countries criteria, then economic vulnerability index, uh, human asset index, all these three criteria we are graduated. And first review in 2021 we also graduated. We will be entering into the developing countries as per schedule. It will be 2024, but due to the pandemic situation, uh, we seek their permission to we will be graduated in 2026. But we hope that confidently said that in 2026, whatever our criteria's target, HAI, Human Development Index, Economic Vulnerability Index, all these things that will be targeted to achieve in 2026, we have already achieved in 2021. In that case, we can say confidently that we will be graduated successfully and going entering and will be entering the developing status. All these things taking under consideration, we can say that we are a favorable position. We have a favorable position in terms of foreign investment, in terms of local economic development. All these things are ready to choose operate the economy both in micro and macro level. We are ready to operate efficiently. In that case, I think foreign investors are willing to invest in Bangladesh. uh, but when we have a target 2041 target, or in 2024 forget our vision is we will be high developed countries, so that we have so many things that we have to do during including research and development research field. If you aware, if we want to aware our people or investor or businessmen about the ESG, we need awareness program and we need research. We need develop. We need customize the global criteria, global framework, we need to customize for the Bangladesh. That is for my side. I would like to hear from the resource person or panel, experts panel. Basically, I'm here to learn, to hear something inspirational message from the expert panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir. We will be really happy. I know that you have 55,000 employees under Energy Ministries, and we want to share our content. It's 100% free. So, because they can learn many things, which is very important for Bangladesh, very important for the knowledge-oriented society. And beside that, I just want to share that in Malaysia, one of the largest education group, they are sponsoring our Talent Economy Summit. Next year, June. Also, one of the largest university from Bangladesh, they also invite all of our international guests, and they will sponsor our Talent Economy Summit inside Bangladesh. Beside that, we have another conference in India. So we are very happy that how we are getting support from the developing nations, and I will be really happy that all of the our expert panelists join offline in our conference. And beside that, we have our great partner IBM TV. The more they share the information and news from these small countries, from these developing nations, I'm sure it will be great like outcome for developing nations, and we can collaborate more with developed world. There are many untrust, misunderstanding, miscommunications. Through this process, maybe we can make a better world. So, and beside that, I just want to share that many countries' prime minister office we are working. Hopefully, many important persons from developing nation they will join. But we'll be really happy if this kind of speakers and scientists they join offline. Mr. Raymond, I know you are a great mind and you have a lot of interesting projects. What is your advice for developing nations, especially how they can integrate it with more technology for this ESG?
All right, thanks once again, Sharif, for the invitation. Hello to the panelists. Nice to see some of you. It's been a while since I've seen some of you. And I think it was really interesting what Mr. Islam was saying with regards to the timeline, looking at 2041. It's already happened. So the most important thing with these projections is to keep the goal clean, clear, and concise. And more importantly, I think in some respects is, well, definitely, is to make sure everybody else is aware of what's going on, what the long-term project is. I think this falls under the G for governance, which is I think the governance side of things with respect to countries, from my perspective, is very much has been quite slow, and I think a lot of this comes down to the old forms and structures that they're currently operating under. So these different governance systems that have been adopted by many companies, small and large, around the world, have shown that there are different, perhaps better ways of governing not just your businesses, but also possibly could be incorporated into country governance as well. So notwithstanding what's happening with the metaverse and all how technology is integrating these sectors, it's very interesting. So yeah, you look at what Dubai was able to achieve in a period of 20 years in the middle of the desert. Definitely Bangladesh, if it has a clean, clear vision and the support of its people behind it, it's already done. So congratulations for that. For my part, here in Buenos Aires, we've had a rough couple of years during the pandemic, but we've been using that time to consolidate our company purpose or redefine our company purpose. 2019, we signed a constitution, or rather our, at the time, acting CEO signed a constitution succeeding his role and powers within the company. and us that formed part of the board of the company succeeded our powers as well to create this constitution, which uses a holocratic form of governance. I think it was 3 weeks ago now, we signed a new act at the lawyer's office. Basically, this was been over the last 2-3 years during the pandemic, when the company has been inoperable because we're in the tourism sector. We have been working in the background, sort of with redefining the structure and building this holocratic structure. So we signed 3 weeks ago a new act, which basically takes us one step closer to integrating with Argentine law. So we are the first holocratic company, for-purpose enterprise, I guess is the correct term to use, to be registered in Argentina. So I'm very, very pleased with how we've managed to progress with that. With regards to governance, I mean, there are great tools for use with regards to governing our flat structure, our holocratic structure, which has been really crucial. I think the more freedom that you want, the closer you have to be to the absolute truth, whatever that truth might be. I think it was Donald was talking about value, and companies, what they value or what they have been valuing over the last period of this move into strong capitalistic focus. These values have been defined as money, and that's how we have been defining our successes. And obviously now, as you mentioned, the millennials have a complete different set of values, and these values are what are driving them. So these purpose-driven companies, I think, that already exist, have already proven that everything from petroleum companies through to tourism agencies have proven that these are tools that can be incorporated, and perhaps even people that are involved in the political sphere would do well to perhaps start to look to the future for these different forms of governance, perhaps replacing many of the systems and models that they're currently using. Just last night, talking to what Kimberly mentioned with regards to the female collective, if you like. Last night I was invited to a Women in Crypto session, which was very interesting. These were a collection of women from around the world that were there to talk about the blockchain technology, the digital currencies, decentralization of these currencies, and how they are already using them to advance themselves and consolidate their families' financial understandings, I guess, and literacy. So I think that was really interesting. Equality and justice is very important, and we are all, I think, very driven towards things that feel just and correct. So a lot of us are all involved in or come from some sort of caste-based society, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how these new forms of governance, more sustainable businesses that are more focused towards not affecting badly their environments, how these systems are going to perhaps become outdated, I guess, in some way. Yeah, that's probably all to kick off with.
Thank you. Professor Nick. Professor Nick, role of media, very important. All of the big media, they only bring the big news of the big corporations, of the big countries. What about the small countries, small people? They have interesting story, very interesting story. So how we can work together? How we can conquer the global community?
Yeah, we're going to be able to work together quite easy, Sharif, because that's part of the goal of the IBM TV Pod TV network, is to be able to bring international news to people's forefront. Let me just give you an idea about Bangladesh and Malaysia. Today's Wall Street Journal has nothing about those two countries, neither does New York Times. ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, all of our big networks. This week, you will hear this about Bangladesh. Nothing. You'll hear this about Malaysia. Nothing, Sharif. So you could be doing all the work that you want over there. You could have all the great ideas in the world, but our media will not report it. It's like it's dead. Instead, what are they doing? They feed junk food to our people because we like to consume junk food. So the latest thing they're doing on media is somebody builds a little building. It's a game show, and then the building claps. Everybody goes, "Oh no!" And that stuff goes on here all the bloody time, Sharif. I mean, it's really the United States of America feeds junk food. The reason why we are more apt to consume the junk food. We like junk food. We like eating the trash because it gives us a little high. Okay, so what the IBM TV Pod TV network breaks through all that. What we're doing is we're saying we're going to show what's going on in a country that has 164 million people like Bangladesh, which is being completely ignored by the US media, which is five corporations own 90% of all the media consumed in the United States. 5 have 90%. And if Bangladesh isn't on the list, and I hate to say it, you're not, and if Malaysia's not on the list, and they're not either, you're not going to hear anything about it. So I can sit here and I get Acorn, I get Amazon Prime, I get Netflix, I get Disney Plus, I get Hulu, I get all these things. And here's what I'm going to hear about Bangladesh this week. Nothing. So the only way I'm going to be able to consume that is to go to the IBM TV network, go to our Pod TV network on Roku. Then I can actually watch a show, which I think yours is going to be the only one actually out of the Malaysia, Bangladesh area, and on issues like ESG, which affect everybody. But it just amazes me how much, because like even China, when I talk to my friends at China, I said, look, for the most part, we ignore you like you don't even exist. And Bangladesh, I can guarantee you, as far as most mainstream America, you don't even exist. Neither does Malaysia. But Sharif, you and I know that's not true, because I believe there are actually people that live in Bangladesh, and there's lots of them. And I believe you're actually doing things over there. So that's what our media network's about, is being able to break through that and report that to the American public. And Roku over here actually our Roku channel carries about 69 million people. So the thing is, it's a good network to broadcast through, I would say. And that's what we're doing over at the IBM TV, the Pod TV network. And I think it's being broadcast live, Kim. I don't know, because that technology is new. Here's the other thing that we're doing, which is new technology. Right now I'm talking in English, and everybody can hear us in English. The new technology we're going to put on, I'm going to be talking to English, and if you're a Spanish listener, you're going to hear it all in Spanish, or you're going to hear it in French, or you're going to hear it in Urdu, or you're going to hear it in Hindu, whatever language you choose. That technology is already out there, and we're working to put that together on our network, Sharif, so no matter what country we're broadcasting in, we can habla español even though we're speaking English. They'll hear it in Spanish. And it's really cool technology for the media industry. Today, most of our media has never even adopted it, yet it's available. We might be the first one to adopt it. It's just amazing how they don't adopt new technologies. We're the first one doing Roku Live, assuming this is going Roku Live. Kim was working on it today. Okay, that we're actually beaming live. So it's amazing to see that some of these large networks are behind the curve. I can't tell you why, except Sharif, it just takes them so long to make a decision, but we'll be out there with the probably either at the end of this year or early next year, where you'll be speaking in English and broadcasting in Urdu at the same time.
Excellent. Yes, and do not forget that around 200 million people speak in Bangla around the world.
Bangla? Okay.
Yes, and it's a seven largest language. So do not forget.
Really, the key thing is the technology geeks have a whole series of languages they use. I just got to go check and see if Bangla's on the
It's the
language
seventh
list.
largest, yes.
Okay,
And
right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Madam Kimberly, you are also part of media, women empowerment. For me, one of my PhD on women empowerment, glass ceiling factors. For developing worlds, it's a very, very interesting story it has. They are doing microfinance, they are doing lot of small entrepreneurship, lot of startup women actually doing a lot of support. Even I am Sharifuddin, Dr. Sharifuddin, because of my wife, because of my mother. How you want to share your views, especially for developing nations women, and how you want to bring them in global media?
So, again, I'm just going to say that we need to just make things more accessible and available for women. It's just been such a big challenge, and I guess we can't keep going back in history, but unfortunately, like in the United States, they keep generating these laws that set us back to 1942 rather than moving us forward. So until you stop chaining our hands together and making laws that prevent us from making our own decisions and growing and becoming who we need to be, but invite us. Okay. I mean, Sharif, like you said, your wife is an entrepreneur. So I know you have no problem inviting a woman like you invite me. I've seen you invite other women. So just make a special effort to invite. But like Nick has discovered, a lot of times you can invite a lot of women and they don't show up. And so we have to understand, why don't they show up? And a majority of them, they're just working, overtime, not to just take care of their companies and their businesses and the people that work for them, but also their families, right? So they're working double all of the efforts to make the whole world keep spinning. So to include more women, we just have to give more incentive. We have to make things more equal, and and just more inspirable. It's not easy, it's just not easy being a woman. I mean, I started as an engineer back in 1984. It was definitely not equal, and it was not easy. It was not even easy getting through the college courses because you had so many blocks, and people just didn't want women to be in that world. And so I think things have changed a lot, but I'm going to tell you, I went to a global standards committee a few years ago. I was invited, and it's standards for high tech in the asynchronous transfer mode or high bandwidth, which I helped develop the first and cut over the first high speed bandwidth in the United States. I'm not sure if it's in the world. That's always been a challenge. But it was in the Research Triangle Park back in 1993. We cut over the first fiber backbone. And when I went to the Standards Committee meeting, I arrived a little late, and they escorted me in and sat me down at the front of the room. And the room is full. And the gentleman on the stage, he kept saying lady and gentleman type thing rather than ladies. And I'm like, and I looked around, and I was the only woman. All right. And this is not the only time this has happened to me. I've attended other big conferences, and I go to the high tech part of it, to the high tech rooms. And I go in, and there's, hundreds of people sitting there, filling the tables, filling the spaces, and maybe one woman besides myself. And so we've got to start influencing and encouraging more women. We've just got to make it more accessible, a little easier, maybe start providing them some incentives to come. Very few women are on the speaking circuit, as I learned when I first started working with Nick. Someone came up to me and said, hey, you really need to get on the speaking circuit because women can make a lot of money, because there are not enough women on the speaking circuit, but they're not. But they don't make it invitable. They don't make it accessible. They keep it very, very closed. So it's very hard to even get in the financial industry or the inspirational industry. It's not easy getting a book published as a woman. Men get them published, they get promoted, and it gets out there. And that's just because the credibility of men stand a little bit higher than women. That's because when we speak in a second guessing tone, which I've been trained to do otherwise. And I've been told that people fear me. Well, they shouldn't fear me. I'm just, when I sit down and do my homework, I make sure my facts back up everything I say before I speak. So I really, and I was trained not to second guess myself because I was working with nothing but men engineers. and they speak with that same tone. So there are things that we could help women with, encourage them, but we need to make the door more open and available. Right now, if I go on a speaking circuit, they don't want to pay me as much. Men, they get their expenses paid, they get paid to speak, their books get promoted. And I'm not saying that's not fair. I'm just saying we need to figure out how to make it more equally available to women. So these are just a few things I've noticed since 1984 when I entered the career world, and how things have changed. And, people say things have changed because more women are in more powerful positions, but we're not equally in more powerful positions. There's more of us doing more things, but we're not equally balanced. And we're still running usually both a home and a business or work and generating revenue and struggling to invest into our own futures. And that brings me back to when a woman gets in the United States gets pregnant. Guess what? Now, with the laws the way they're making them, they want to punish you. They don't want you to make your own choices of what's right for you or good for you. They don't punish the guy that helped got the girl pregnant and make him help pay for everything. She's usually left on her own to go raise the children, raise the family, find means to do all of this while he's off doing whatever he wants to do. So we need to balance the laws. We need to make things more right for women. And I don't know what it's like in other countries. I really don't. I try to stay focused in my own country. But maybe if we unite under one standards committee as a world, right, and get a system evolved as a world, a matrix involved to govern the people as a world and not as a state or a country, but we unite, like in one of those sci-fi movies, where our governance is global and it's no longer, and we make it equal, right? We make it equal for every human. And I have to agree, what's going to happen to Austin, Texas, the great Silicon Valley, when they make the law about gay people and restricting their rights, and Apple pulls up and leaves because Apple supports gay people. So we need to make laws, get out of people's business, make them more civil rights, just stop doing all of this nonsense playing around with people's lives and get back to the basics of how do we make quality of life for humans. And that's what we don't do. Every country, you establish your prejudice, your social common norm prejudice, and then you work it against people because that's how leaders build themselves, right? They get a crowd that follows them, a cult. They are prejudiced against another group. That's how we divided this country. And until we unite and establish, I think, a global governance, we're not going to see anything move forward that is healthy for human race. That's just, and women can grow under that because we've seen New Zealand, we've seen states where women run the state and they do so much better than the other states, but we don't give the credibility to these women like they deserve, and we should. And then maybe that's something else we could do, is start giving more credibility to these women. And it's not to put you guys down. I respect every one of you men. I have mentored under men that I totally adore and would continue and admire and continue to respect. But it's because they treat women as equals. So, and Nick is one of them. Kenneth Tate at NC State, who sits on one of the boards with me, is one of them. David Pope is another one who really pushes equal rights, not just for women, but for minorities of all kinds, including gay, lesbian, bias, trans. I mean, we just have to change our mindset and stop being prejudiced, stop labeling, and just treat humans as humans. Because I think every God in the universe and every religion would want that. That's just me. But leaders don't. They want prejudice.
Thank you.
So.
Excellent. Professor David Smith, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, I've loved how broadly today's session has been and how we've covered so many different topics on it.
Yes.
Let me just wrap up, coming right back to ESG, though, in my closing remarks here. and what we see with it. You know, if you look at what ESG criteria is, you know, we're looking across all the different areas of environmental, social responsibility. What are the other social factors, such as the standings in the local community, the commitment to diversity and inclusion? Where does it put its charitable contributions? And what are the employment policies that foster health and safety? And then you look at the corporate governance, such as transparent accounting methods, executive compensation, board compensation, and how does it have an internal set of regulations to prevent conflicts of interest and unethical behavior? Those are all some of the elements that go into it. But the closing remark I'd like to make on it, though, is that, you know, putting my futures hat on, you know, the world is changing, and global challenges such as the increased regulatory pressure, social and emotional, the demographic shifts, privacy, data security, climate risk are all representing new risk for investors and for companies. And if you just look at the economic pressures that COVID placed on some industries, it's dramatically changed the risk complex for those as well. And so that's one of the other reasons why it has become important. You have this new generation of investors and how they're due. But the biggest change that also has affected ESG is we have better technology, we have better data, we have really worldwide connectivity. We're seeing artificial intelligence brought to bear. We're doing things like alternative data extraction methods that we can go and pull data as opposed to relying on the companies to do a voluntary disclosure of company data. We have machine learning, natural language processing, helps us go through this very fast and lets us put a new dynamic to how we can work with companies, how we can work as investors, how the nations of the world can pull together and use ESG, not just from where the company is headquartered, but from where the work is being done. So what it does is it lets us take the ESG concept and make it global, as opposed to just where you see the majority of the company living. So those are my kind of closing remarks on this, is that it's one that the technology, the digitalization, the connectivity, all the tools that we have at disposal are really the enablers for ESG to be at the forefront, as we've discussed today. So Sharif, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor David Smith. Professor Donald, what's your concluding remarks?
I think Kimberly brought up some fascinating points. I want to add something to what she said. The happiest country in the world is Finland, and their entire government, except their president, is women, and only one of them is over 35. And so that actually works. And when I teach at the university in Finland, I'm teaching in the information systems department, and easily half my students are women. And there's no barrier there at all. I mean, it's just completely the country is designed to be egalitarian, both money-wise and in every way. It's just made to be fair for everyone, and it's possible to do that.
It is.
It struck me, we've got a really serious problem right now in the United States, and it's terrifying what's going on. And there's a very large restrictions now on the women's freedom, and it's very, very frightening. And it's interesting because it's on a state by state basis. So I know people that are leaving Texas right now, and Texas is clamping down on people, and they're actually the attorney general said today that he's going to try and make it illegal to be gay in the state, and so the whereas California is saying that we're going to be a sanctuary. So if somebody is, you know, criminalized for being gay in Texas, they can come to California and we won't extradite them. Even if they're a criminal in Texas, we won't let Texas take them from California. So it's a very amazing problem right now. And what's interesting is that relates to ESG is that the companies are starting to get involved in this. And so if a woman needs an abortion in Texas, for instance, where it's illegal, the companies will actually now fly them to a state where it is legal. Many of the companies are starting to do this. Meta, Google, tech companies, Bank of America, Wells Fargo Bank, the list is very, very long. So the companies are actually getting involved in the um, socially responsible activities to try and help the women help women have the medical care, which the states are actually prohibiting the women from having. So it's a fascinating area where the companies are actually leading in allowing for medical care and doing the socially responsible things that are necessary. I expect to start seeing companies leaving the states that are doing because it's expensive if they have to start flying their employees to other states for medical care and things like that. If they make it illegal to be gay in Texas, Tim Cook is gay, the CEO of Apple. I mean, you know, obviously it doesn't make sense for Apple to stay in Texas. So I expect to see it's a very it shows where being socially irresponsible and treating people poorly is going to be extremely damaging to the people that are doing that. And I expect to see this happening to a large degree. And the United States just switched and said that we're not allowed to regulate pollution anymore. So all of a sudden, the people that now have to be responsible for regulating pollution are the companies, because the government can't do it anymore. And so we're in a situation where the people that are responsible are now investors, the people that are investing in the companies and the companies. So the ESG has become incredibly much more important. And I think we're gonna start seeing, I mean, it's something that we've never ever seen in the world before, where a developed country all of a sudden starts, you know, going backwards in a huge way. So it's going to be very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to add something to what you just said, because you hit the nail on the head about everything that is so damning about what's going on. And the one thing that people don't understand is that if a woman does get pregnant, which I think is a very HIPAA violation, and her company does send her out of the state to do what she deems is necessary for her own body, she becomes a criminal in the state of Texas. And they can and will arrest her if she returns to the state of Texas. They might as well start stoning, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, I think what they want to do now is just chain the pregnant women to the beds, but what are they going to do with the children after they're born? See, there's no parenthood planning there. No pro-lifers standing in line saying, we'll take care of these babies or help you take care of them. So there's no, but I agree with you. But here's what bothers me is those women are now labeled criminals in that state. That's not fair. That is not fair. It's not
People
right.
are leaving already. People are leaving already.
Yeah, I'm not
And
returning. My family is there, and I'm not returning home. Not not going there. In North Carolina, when we did that potty law, the government banned people from traveling to North Carolina. So I hope that the government does the same thing to Texas that they did to North Carolina. But anyway, I know it's not my turn. I just wanted to add that as a woman
well,
that we are now considered criminals in those states.
it's hugely
We're
important. I
labeled.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
scarlet
so
letter.
upsetting
Hey,
to me
can we?
right now. I can't even tell you. I'm sure it is to even more to you. It's so
But the
upsetting.
scarlet letter, right? But anyway, I'm sorry, and I think it's probably Nick or somebody else's turn. But
Yeah.
you're dead on. So
Thank you. Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir, what's your concluding remarks for today's sessions and how we can contribute more? We have a plan to do a lab with energy ministries, and we are creating a lot of opportunities for contributing knowledge economy in Malaysia and Asia Pacific for Bangladesh youth. How we can work, how we can contribute, and how we can grow together.
Thank you. First of all, the world now is not for competition, it is for collaboration. A collaborative world will work for the betterment of the whole globe. From our Bangladesh, we can collaborate knowledge sharing, skill development in all sectors, not only power and energy sector. Across the sectors, we can enhance the knowledge and skill um, in collaboration with first world or mm, developed countries. We can collaborate. We can establish all those international rules and provisions that we need to enter. We need to be graduated from least developed countries to middle income country and ultimately developed countries. We have lot of things to do. Personally, from my professional side, uh, I will try to introduce some issues that in through training we can conduct some training on digital transformation. As one research person and expert said, blockchain, cloud computing, or machine learning. At first, we need to as since our demographic dividend is very good position, we can upskill our manpower with the new technologies as the world is changing rapidly, world is changing monotonically. And one thing is important here, the role of women and the role of media, both in print media or electronic media. In Bangladesh, we believe that women are active agent, not passive recipient of development outcome. Now we understand this. Actually, empowerment is a complex concept for our country that encompasses social, economic, and political aspects of life. Bangladesh has achieved a remarkable success in advancing the cause of women under our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's leadership. Her actions on women's empowerment and equality are often seen a seen a model for other national governments. The Women are still far from enjoying their full autonomy in our country and equality of treatment in their lives in our country. Still, we have to do something more for fully empower the women. I emphasize on this point, women empowerment. I agree, and I believe that without women empowerment, we can sustain or we can achieve the sustainable development except the women. Role of media is important because we have many success story. It may be small, it may be big, but we have many success stories that we can share with other agents, other parties, other countries. We can share through this using this media. So from my part, I will try to conduct some trainings and workshop webinar on the on um, modern new issues, contemporary issues like blockchain, like machine learning, cloud computing, this fifth industrial revolution, whatever we said it, and AI and ESG also. We can conduct some webinar also, with our high officials and including our private sector also, including we can invite you all. That's from my part. From today's episode, I have learned a lot of things from the panel. I would like to request Mr. Rana to extend his effort in this regard, and I would like to request Mr. Rana to mm, conduct that type of program regular basis, not sporadic fashion, regular basis, and more program will be welcome. Will welcome that type of program, and that will be more useful to us. That's from my part. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's why, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, we developed this World Talent Economy Forum. This is one of the fastest growing think tank and academy in Asia Pacific. Well, not only Bangladesh, like around 30 different countries from Middle East, from Asia, Asia Pacific. Around the Asia Pacific, we are contributing for grassroots level people. This is our objective, and uh, hopefully in between few years we will get very effective result from our grassroots level people, and anything we can contribute. My father was freedom fighters, my grandfather was freedom fighters, so my whole family
My
contribute
father
for
also.
uh, contribute for
My father, my elder
as
brother, was freedom
yes,
fighter.
they contribute for our country. So this is my term. I believe that I have to contribute for my nations. I have to contribute for developing nations. I am from developing nations, and hopefully with the help of developed world we can contribute more. Mr. Raymond, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, what's your concluding
Can you
remarks?
hear me?
uh, yes.
Concluding remarks. Very, very interesting this afternoon. Thank you so much once again. Nick and Donald, from what I understood, is like there's a lot of talk of the dumbing down of America, and this. Well, I'm from New Zealand myself, and they do say that some of the most beautiful places in the world are also the most dangerous, and I guess that refers to volcanoes and things that can eat you and so on and so forth. But I think in the global space where we're living at the moment with all the changes, things are very, very beautiful, but also at this point of this intersection of, and there's huge amounts of changes happening, it's also very, very dangerous. I mean, I see many similarities to our world that we live in, mimicking things that we see on TV now with regards to Black Mirror. Kimberly mentioned talking about women's equality and people trying to claim sovereignty over other people's individual personal space. The Handmaid's Tale is a good example of that, and it seems to echo what's happening in North America, which I think is really, really interesting. TikTok sending their the TikTok application is like very, very popular. It's sent from China or created in China and most used in the US of A. And I don't actually think in China they allow their citizens to use it. They're more driven towards more educational, more scientific, more these things instead of all copying the same dance moves on TikTok. What Mr. Islam was saying with regards to, no, I don't think it was you actually. Somebody mentioned the how education. I think it might have been Nick with regards to IBM TV, Pod TV, and so forth. The education needs to be something that's tactile enough and engaging enough for people to sort of stay interested and stay connected longer than the 2-second TikTok that we're used to seeing. I think metaverse, this virtual world, will have a big hand in that. If we're able to go into one of these virtual worlds, immerse ourselves in Bangladesh life, and talk to past and present leaders, citizens, and have conversations with them in a virtual world, we're going to be perhaps more able to be engaged more closely, in a more tactile way. And I think that might be a next step with regards to the education of people moving into this, using all this new technology that we have. Definitely individual governance for me is more important, and without the correct individual governance, we're always going to have a lot of turbulence. But I think the antithesis of that is global governance. I mean, there needs to be a balance there. What I heard the other day, the hardest thing to do is to know yourself, but it's also the most important thing to do is to know yourself. So these new technologies, I think, can help us a lot. It's a matter of using them coherently with vision. Obviously, it's what I want to say, the alignment of people's thoughts and visions supersedes the mechanisms that were used. So I think getting people in alignment, all on the same track, is going to be crucial. Business drivers, economic drivers are obviously still going to be super important. And you have, but within these virtual worlds, there are a lot of economic drivers. So a good example I heard the other day was an artist who normally collects $1 or $2 million per performance at a live concert recently received $20 million for one night's work, within one of these virtual worlds. So one of the worlds that I'm working with them is Lydian.world. This is a virtual world over its own blockchain connected to a financial system, the world's first digitized decentralized bank over the G999 mainnet blockchain. And I think with the alignment of people going in the same direction, government becomes a lot easier, because you're not going to have a business able to survive or a corporation able to survive within one of these metaverses if you have the majority of people behind it just looking at it going, yeah, we see you a lot more clearly now. Can you see what you're doing out there? We don't agree with that. That's why we're in here supporting these companies. That's why we're following these businesses. This is why we're following these female presidents inside Lydian World. There are already female presidents involved. So there are a lot of interesting technologies already in place. Not just audio, but like Nick was referring to, but also this visual conglomeration of everything is super super dangerous. So let's just link hands, lock knees, and move forward. I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of decades. So thanks once again, Sharif.
Thank you. Professor Nick Palfeta, I'm a big fan of your work. Our dream was big, and your audience, my audience may be completely different, but We want to develop next World Economy Forum for developing nations. Uh, that's why we give 100% free like membership. We are not go for the high charges and all of the big things. We really want to do work for our grassroots level people, for our developing nations, how your media can help us to grow, how we can contribute for our developing nations.
by broadcasting the events that you do, Sharif. Um, like I said, one of our projects, and I'm looking for Bengali to see if one of the translators do that. And we had somebody that came on that was from Brazil. Okay, the person from Brazil obviously speaks English or can understand English. It'd be better to translate into Portuguese so that this way the person would know that. I think language has always been a barrier, but I think that barrier is going to go down in the next 5 years with these computer translation programs. And we're going to be in the forefront of doing that and making sure that our programs are available in almost, we're already in 122 countries, but we're going to want to be in the countries that we're not into with the language that they speak, their native language, and not English, because English is around 62 countries is their primary language. But then French, Spanish, Portuguese, Bengali, which I'll look for, Sharif, make sure the computer program has it. As long as the computer program has it, well, we're going to be able to do that. And so people will be able to listen to these types of programs all over the world. And also, Sharif, like I said, that you know, Bangladesh and Malaysia, when I tell people about, oh yeah, there's their eyes roll back. Where are these countries? In the United States, we're so egocentric as to what goes on in the US and then what goes on in Western Europe. And then that's about it. The rest of the world, the US gets very little information about. So I'm hoping that your show will be able to be listened to by people in the United States of America who realize that the world is bigger than the US and Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Professor. And one thing, like always, I say in my class in Malaysia, I say that, "Hey, you always think that Bangladeshi people actually work as a labor in the grassroots level. No, we have many Nobel Prize winner. We have Rabindranath Tagore's. We have Amartya Sen. We have Abhijit Banerjee. You know, everybody speaking Bengali. We have Dr. Muhammad Yunus. So yes, it's not bad, right? Like intellectually, we are very sharp. So I inspire my student here. I want next Nobel Prize winner from Malaysia. I come here to help you. So yeah, this is the way we are creating visions in our university, and hopefully it will be very very effective for all of us. Madam Kimberly, you are great leaders, and what you want to share for our women, those
I
who
just want to
really
share
hard for it.
share. Don't fear getting out there and expressing yourself and gaining progress for yourself, because it will gain progress for other people, and people are here to support you. And shows like Sharif's and TV networks like what Nick and I have built are here to help support the equality of the world. And that's what we're about, is providing the information and education people need. One of my favorite phrases is from The Fox and the Hound, which I'm sure will be banned eventually from the right wing nuts, is from The Fox and Hound, eliminate education is elimination. And what they were trying to say is elimination of prejudice, right? Once we start educating people about who we are and what we're trying to do, we all want the same things in life. But that's what we're about here on this network of media. Media does help bend people's minds. And what we want to do is allow people to bend their own minds with the information and resources we provide. And thank you, Sharif, and thank you, panel, for all your educated input. Because every time I sit here, I learn something new about each and every one of you that just impresses me, inspires me, and empowers me. And I thank all of you for your educated input and experience.
Thank you, everyone. It's excellent sessions, especially for the developing nations audience. I request Mr. Rafiqul Islam, share our content with your audience, share our content with your people, our grassroots
Yes.
level people, our energy.
If you allow me just to 5 seconds. I would like to compliment something with Professor Nick. He assured that language is not the problem, right?
Yes.
It is a good news, but technology is far advanced. Not only language, even internet of thought process will also be read by the technology. What I am thinking, it will be readable by the technology. That is very optimistic, not only language. Thank you so much, Nick,
Thank you.
for your
Thank you.
optimistic speech. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rafiqul Islam. Besides that, one point I want to share experience. For learning purpose, we go develop world. We visit Harvard, we visit MIT, we visit Oxford, Cambridge, all of the large university. I request the developed nations, visit the developing nations. Visit the grassroots level people. You can develop your empathy, you can develop your kindness, you can learn different things. When I was in Oxford and Cambridge, I invite many people to Bangladesh, and they do their interning in different organizations, and they become the great leaders. Someone from Malaysia, he become youth minister, Sir Sadiq Abdul Rahman. He also visited Bangladesh with me in our projects. So we are observing there are a lot of where the leaders are not like working properly. We are observing Putin, what he is doing. The more the leaders they engage with developing nations and we learn from developed nations, then we can make a more effective world. So we have to learn from each others. We have to engage with different culture, different community. That is the objective of World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you. This is excellent sessions. Excellent session for our audience. Excellent session for our youth community. I request everyone share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye
you
and
so
take
much.
care.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.